Hi everyone, welcome to Watercolor Bible Journaling. I am Bonnie Krebs and I'm here with another project for you to do. So this is one of our newest sets. It's the As the Deer set and includes quite a few pieces with some text in here. So I'm going to show you how to put this together in your Bible. And in addition to that set, we're going to need a few things. So the little grass from the foliage set, just that. And then in the flower set, this little filler flower right here, and this little leafy branch right here. So that's all it's going to take to do that little project in my Bible. So I've already prepped my page, I've already buffed it out, so it's very smooth, and I am ready to get started. So I'm going to start out by inking the basic image. So there really are two. This one and this one, and the reason they're in two parts is so that you can spread them out or put them closer together depending on how much space you want to use. So you can place them very close like this, or you can spread them out so that you have more room to write. So that's all up to you. So I'm going to start out with this one here, and I'm going to ink this in a few different colors. So I'm going to start out by inking the deer in the number 969. And I'm using the side of my marker. Don't ever try to color it this way with the tip. It's going to take you forever, and you're not really going to have the best results doing that. So always use the side of your marker. And then I'm going to go over these stones as well, just the stones, and then I'm going to come back over that with the blue. So this is a dark blue, it's number 565, and I'm just going over the stones with the blue. And then I'm going to come back over now with the green, and you can use any green, and just hit these lines here where the ground is. So that's the cool thing about stamping, is that you can color the areas that you want to be colored. So I'm going to now stamp this into my Bible, and I want to make sure that it's centered. So I am going to place it about here. That looks pretty good. And then let's go on to the next one. And we're going to ink this one now and kind of do the same thing. So we're going to ink that tree with the dark brown and the stones. So in here like that. We're going to come back over the stones with the dark blue, and then come back over these lines where the ground is with the green. And I am going to stamp this just a little bit farther down, I think right about here. That looks good. So you can see how you can move these apart closer together. You just create a larger stream here, but you do have that option to kind of make it fit your margin, depending on what you want to put in it. Okay, so now let's go ahead and go on to the next step, and that's to pull the color out of the line. So I'm going to dip my brush in water, and I'm going to start out with these little stones. So make sure that you don't have too much water on your brush. You know, these little areas, they're so small, and these lines are so small that you can easily erase the lines, and we don't want to do that. We want to just draw the color out so that it looks three-dimensional. Be sure when you're doing these stones that you're leaving a highlight at the top. That's how you can tell that they're rounded, is with that highlight. So just like that. Let's go back over now the green. So these green lines, it's going to be very light. But we're going to come back in with some more color and some more grasses. But this just kind of gives us an idea of where that's going. Okay, so let's go on now to our little deer, and we are going to carefully pull this color out of the lines. And you want to always, when you're doing characters, especially animals, make sure that you always leave this area where the eyes are. You leave that very light. Never color in around the eyes dark, because it's going to, you sort of lose the personality of the character, and this is where the sort of the light of their personality is, and so you always want to keep that light. It's just a really good rule of thumb to remember. Now I'm going to also leave a highlight at the top of this little deer's back. We always want to see a highlight at the top. You know, when you color anything in solid, even if it's a small image, it's going to be flat. So a really good way to avoid that is just to make sure you have a highlight on the top, you have a highlight by the face, and you darken in where the eyes and the nose are. So we're going to do that right now. I'm just going to take a fine tip, this is just a black, and I'm really going to darken his little nose in and his eyes. And you can see that really pops that little guy out. So let's go on to the next one, and we're going to do the same thing. So see the top of this deer, we want to leave a highlight on the top. So we don't want to get the color all the way to the top. So the top of his body right here is going to have a highlight. Or her, maybe it's a she. So you can see I'm just dragging this color out, making sure that I don't have any color by the eyes. And I have a line, a little highlight line at the top. Okay, that looks pretty good. So we'll come back to these. We'll add a little more color to these a little later on. But for now, we're good to start. I'm just going to do the same thing with the eye and the nose. Okay, so let's go on to the tree, and we are going to add some leaves to this tree before we add any water to it. So here's that little leafy, it's in the flower set, but it actually works great as a leaf. So I use it both ways. So I'm going to ink that now and just stamp it into this tree, just kind of all over the place. Remember to stamp it a bunch of times before you re-ink it. Just get in there a bunch, just kind of work your way around. You're going to see the lights and the darks. And, you know, let's use another green too. So you can mix your greens up, and you'll get a lot more contrast that way too. Just using some different greens. Just make sure you're stamping that over and over again. Okay, so let's add some water to that now. And we're just gonna jump our brush around now. It's okay to blend that brown now into the foliage. It's gonna give a little more color into this tree. And then just kind of drag that color out. We don't want to erase all the lines, but we just want to soften, kind of soften what we've just stamped. Okay, that looks good. Throughout this little grassy area. So let's go ahead and add our water. So we're just going to take this dark blue. So this is the dark blue that I started with. And I'm just going to put some of this onto my palette. Add some water to it. So really water this down. You can always come back in and add more color. So it's always better to start out light. And you want to keep your hands straight and just kind of brush this in. Just keep your hand straight. Try not to touch the deer. You don't want that color to bleed out into the blue. So kind of keep your brush away from that. It's kind of nice, these journaling Bibles, mine for sure has lines in here, so it's easy for me to see how to keep this blue straight. It does help a lot. Okay, so let's keep going down this way. And I'm just gonna brush this color in as well. Get that blue in there. And the same thing down here, you wanna keep your hand straight, keep those lines straight. And it's okay to leave some white areas too. And I'm just dipping my brush, pinching it off, and adding more color. So I can really see how far my water is coming down, how much margin I still have left. So I'm going to add the rocks in now. So this little patch of rocks comes in that set, and we're going to ink it the same way as we did the rocks in the previous images. We're going to ink it with the brown and then go over it again with the blue. And when you stamp this in your Bible, be careful not to just mash it into the page. So you want to carefully just press it onto the page. And if you kind of have a heavy hand, go ahead and stamp it off. It's okay to do that. Just stamp it off, you know, on another sheet of paper and then put it onto your page. So let's go ahead and pull the color now out of the lines of these little rocks. And leave that highlight on the top. So that's really, really important that you do that. So now I'm going to come back in here. This is dry now, and I'm just going to go a little darker back in here. And let's add a little more back in here as well. Just along the shoreline. Okay, that looks good. That's a good starting place. So let's go ahead now and add some green in. So I'm going to just put some green onto my palette, just like I did with the blue. And just going to brush in a little of this color. Just in the background here. You don't have to get every single inch of, you know, the image. You really don't. You're just kind of giving the idea of it. You know, watercolor is, you know, is very soft. It doesn't, you know, necessarily have, you know, harsh margins. It just kind of fades out. So you're just giving the idea of the grassy hills. It doesn't, you know, you don't necessarily have to just color in every inch. I think we kind of learned that in elementary school, that we have to color everything in solid line to line. And then we spend the rest of the time trying to erase that from our minds. So I'm giving you permission not to color everything in. And let's just put some grass in here too. So we can bring some grass around this way. So we're kind of curving our little stream around. Okay, and let's just put a little background in here. So I'm going to change color, different green. And I'm just going to put in a little green hill into the background. Very light. And you can see that just kind of adds a little more detail to the background. And then let's put some blue, take some of this blue and just add some blue to the sky. It's okay to get that blue into the green. You know, when you're adding a sky, you can kind of mix that blue into the leaves, but you don't want to touch You don't want to touch the tree trunk, and get the brown into it. You don't want to bleed that in. Okay, so let's go ahead and add a little more color to these deer. And I'm going to use a little brighter brown. This is a number 947. This is kind of a warm brown. And I just want to get a little more color on here, onto them. So just, you know, keep it light. You can always go back and add more. You know, the more passes you make, the darker it's going to be. So really important, keep that face light. Keep that highlight on the back. And you're going to be so much happier with how things turn out. Okay, let's go on to the next one. And keep that highlight in there. And just get this, kind of work your way down. And this one too, make sure you leave that light on the face where the eyes are. Okay, let's go on now and add some detail in here. So we're going to add some grasses. And we're just going to kind of come along the side of the water. So we're just going to walk this along. We can put it in here by the rocks. In here, along here. And we can put some back in here as well. So back in here, we don't want to add any grass back in here because this is too far away in the distance. And you know, if the grass is too large, it brings that in too close. So these areas that are in the foreground, we for sure can add it in here. So now I'm going to just add some water now and just kind of drag this out. Just pull that color up and out. And I'm just going to add a little more green in here where these little rocks are. And a little darker color along this edge. It's going to kind of build that edge up a little bit. And you know, the whole goal is always to make things look three-dimensional. That's what we're trying to do always, is make it look like a little scene so that nobody would ever guess that it was stamped. And stamps are just a tool. Okay, let's add a little more blue now. So this is all dry, so we're going to add just a little more color back in here. And then I'm going to just put some little motion lines, you know, like the water is just kind of coming around. Don't stress out about this too much. Don't worry about this. And we want a dark shadow under this little deer. And this one. Let's just put a little shadow behind here. All these little things, you know, don't stress out about it, but it's, you know, it's always good to add it, but don't worry that it's not perfect. Don't worry about that. If you haven't got it in exactly the right place or you don't feel like it's quite the right shape, it's fine. No one's going to look at it, and you're not going to look at it and just focus on that one little thing. And, you know, the whole point of this art is to kind of keep us on the page. You know, we want to come back to this page and remember and think about what it was that, you know, God said to us, or what those words were that comforted us so much. And not about, you know, if we messed up on the art. That's not what we want to focus on. Okay, so let's add a little color in here now. And I'm going to do that with that little filler flower. And I only need a few of these because this is a really small area. And so we don't want to overdo it with giant blooms that are not in proportion to these little deer. So we're just going to ink these little ones. And I'm using a purple, so just a bright purple. And I'm just adding a few little blooms just here and there. Just kind of, you know, all over. I feel like we just need a little color in here. You know, I've got a lot of green and blue and brown, but, you know, the flowers are just, they're so pretty. So now let's add the water to it. And you can see how that color just pops out. And just jump your brush around. Don't worry that it's not perfect. You're just going to see the color anyway in the background, so you're not going to see those individual blooms. You're just going to see the idea of it. And that's what watercolor is, just the idea of things. And I'm just, you can see I'm still just jumping my brush around. And I'm going to just take those, the little dots from that set. So in that flower set, I didn't mention this in the beginning, but I'm going to take these. These are very tiny, and we can put these in the background with the same color. So we can sort of carry this theme back, but with much, much smaller blooms. And the more that you blend, the softer it gets. And you can take a little of that purple and just kind of reflect that in the water. Kind of fun. And we are just about finished. Let's add just a little more foliage to that tree. I feel like we need a little more green in here. And you can come back, you know, there are a lot of times that I come back to this, you know, several days later and think, oh, I should just add a few more things to it. You can totally do that. As soon as you add water to these, you know, these images, the color will come back. So you can totally do that. And I don't know, things always look different when you walk away from it. You know, and sometimes, you know, I'll do something and I won't really be happy with it. And you know what? I walk away from it and come back and it's like, oh, you know what? That's not so bad after all. I actually do kind of like that. So let's just put a little shadow under this tree as well. And I think we are about finished. Just put a little more green in here. Okay, that looks good. Be sure and date. So today is the 13th of February. And so that you can document that image in your Bible. So thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, and I will be back with the other side of this page in the next video. Thanks so much for watching.